Disclaimer. We are not medical professionals or specialists. This is merely a conversation of our opinions. We are not contradicting anyone's personal views or values. This is our conversation. Topics such as suicide and abuse may also be discussed. Viewers' discretion is advised.
Hey Stigma Busters, welcome to our second episode of the Living Beyond the Horizon podcast, Posh Mentality. So, how are we today?
I'm doing pretty good.
I'm tired.
All right. So, today we will be talking about the biopsychosocial aspect of mental health.
What is that?
So, just to break it down, when it comes to our mental health, there is a biological, there's a social environment, and there's a psychological aspect of our mental health. And so our biological, which is obviously connected to our body and then our brain, so it has to do with genetic vulnerability, our neurochemistry, physical health, immune stress response, and brain disorders. And for the social causes of mental disorders, so it could be traumatic family experiences, neglected childhood, manipulating friend group, right? And these definitely vary from person to person when it comes to experiences. For psychological, it's just essentially the way we think about the world, and it's the causes of mental disorders, right? So this could be our self-esteem, our attitude, beliefs, coping skills, temperance, social skills, our perceptions of the world. And yeah, I think these are definitely very important. I can't say one is more important than the other. Like even for like biological for mental health, I feel like especially in our day, it's not something that we all necessarily pay attention because it's something that's very subconscious, right? It's not something we're constantly thinking about especially when it comes to like social in our environment. Like for biological, I think when I did a bit of research on procrastination, I realized like when we talk about procrastination in terms of like why we can't focus for long periods of time or why we find tasks such as like homework or like homework or tasks, it's like very mundane tasks, not as exciting as going on your phone, right? And then you kind of realize that our brains are wired for that immediate result environment, right? And that's our biology. And just the emotions too. Like once you correlate a task with a negative emotion, your brain is actually going to move away from that emotion, and that's when it tries to convince you to move away from it, right? So, and that this could be anxiety or anything, right? And I feel like that's very important to understand, especially when it's like it's a subconscious thing, right? And when we don't understand that underlying cause, it's kind of just like, oh, we're doing so many like terrible habits, but we don't know why it's there, right? You could be like, okay, I'm gonna leave my phone for a day, right? But then you're still gonna be thinking about it. You're gonna be distracted. You don't know why you're distracted. You're gonna be, and you're just gonna, you don't feel good either.
Yeah, and then like on that biological aspect of how our biological in terms of like body or like physical health, how it also affects our everyday lives. And for mental disorders too, like it could be things like genetic vulnerability, in which like your genes have something to do with you having a mental disorder, perhaps.
Yeah, because the thing is, back in the days, like probably like decades ago, like people, yeah, back in the days. Well, kind of still now, but like the thing is, before, how people diagnosed mental illness was by only focusing on the medical and biological model aspect of it. So the treatments usually involves like medication, and they usually look for patients for any like physical symptoms. But now, as we're doing more research, we're realizing that it's so much more complicated than that. For example, there's also psychological and social aspects to it. So it's not. So I remember one of the examples that Ms. White gave us was that people used to associate autism and anxiety being the same thing because they had similar symptoms, but they're really so different, and the causes of them are also very different. So it's very important to know the variety of aspects that actually contribute to mental health.
Yeah, definitely.
And be able to separate the two too, right? And it's just like, this is different and that's different. So I think that's a very good point to bring up. Very well was said,
Thank you so much.
I think one of the things that I was also curious about was our genetic vulnerability. So just how, how our parents could have this trait, right? In terms of cycle and how we behave and how we inherit that too, right? And I think I was a little confused in terms of like, oh, like if they have an anger management thing, well, I have it too, and just things like that, right? It definitely varies, but like, and that's where like when it comes to like anger and then like the people you're around with, that also makes a big effect on your behavior. So I think that's definitely like the social part of it.
Yeah, so for social, in terms of like that aspect for affecting our daily lives and mental health, things like our social network, people that we hang out with the most, like it could be family or close friends, the way they act can definitely influence the way we act and the way we grow up and how that affects our mental health and mindset.
Yeah, for example, like having traumatic family experiences or having a neglected childhood could all create like a negative impact on our mental health.
Definitely. I think even like for school, right? The environment we are in can also be like super stressful. It can be so stressful. It can breed a lot of anxiety when you have like a million things on your plate. So I think that definitely plays a part in how we grow up and how our mental health is, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a key thing as well, because we spend a lot of our time in school.
Yeah, and we also relate that to social media and how that, affects the biopsychosocial of us. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest thing is, right, like when we think about like not only just like the addiction part of social media, but just like the self-esteem part, and just it's a constant comparison. I feel like when you're on social media, right, whether it's look or whether it's what someone else is doing, right, it can also be really detrimental to your mental health.
So like even like the smallest of things too, that can also have like a very big effect on us as well. Like say school, going back to school, like school dress codes or like any school rules or like having different relationships with teachers. Like you might think a teacher might very like dislike you a lot and that's why you're doing bad in their class, and with the anxiety of like going home as well. Like all of those small things, and even on social media as well, like looking and comparing others to yourself. And then usually that makes people feel a bit worse about themselves and makes them less confident and gives them a negative mindset.
I can relate to that so much.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even with COVID now, like I think before I was like, okay, well, I don't feel like there's a big difference in the way I'm living. Like my mental health's okay, I'm feeling good. But I think as it's continued on, I felt so many opportunities were stripped away too. Like I wasn't as sociable. I wasn't going to my coaching. I wasn't like, I wasn't interacting as much as I would, as I would last year. So I think that made a very big difference as well. Like I just felt I personally felt like I lost some of my purpose, right? When you have all these things that you're going for and you kind of feel like, okay, like what am I here for now, right?
Yeah, social media, like the thing is, I feel like, because on social media, no one really shares their falls, right? Like everyone just shares their highlights. So it's so easy for me to like compare myself because I look at social media and I see everyone with all these achievements. Like they have like hundreds of achievements, and I'm just here at the bottom, and I'm just like, am I like not doing enough? And then I'll be in like a constant cycle of just feeling like I'm like not pushing myself enough and not like achieving enough.
Oh yeah.
And that's definitely not like mindsets that we like, but it's unconscious. It's like you can't control it. It's just if you open your phone or if you have like one post at it, then like it's completely, is it the word subconscious?
Yeah.
It's completely subconscious and you have no control over it. And then like when it happens and you start feeling down, you're like, I should probably stop looking at these, but you can't stop because you can't help but wonder, like what would happen if I actually did enough for once.
Yeah, and also this is something else that's like not as related to social media, but also like how what our close friends or family say to us, like some, like for example, sometimes a friend could say something to you that's like not that nice, but it doesn't affect you that much. But when like a family member says the same thing, I don't know if you get me, but like when someone else closer to you says the same thing that's hurtful, it hurts more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But then, like, for me, I find it a bit weird. It's like sometimes, like, even if it's a stranger, it sort of hurts more. Like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
like sometimes it's the reverse of that. But it's just like sometimes you say things without thinking about it because you're with your friends or like you're with your family. You feel very calm and you feel very open. Like you can just really like say all of your thoughts. But then sometimes some people will end up saying something that they might regret, but they don't like
Yeah.
notice how that one word or how that one phrase or how that one sentence
Yeah.
really like digs itself into somebody else's
Mhm.
brain.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think it's a big thing. Yeah, like we don't understand the power of our words. And I think that definitely relates to like the biopsychosocial, because in terms of like, you know how we look at someone else's situation and we kind of jump to assumptions of why they're feeling that way, right? Like whether it's
Yeah.
depression or anxiety, we never know the full extent of a situation. We will never know
Yeah.
when we just
Yeah.
someone, right? Even if they tell us something, right? There's always going to be something behind there. So, right, you don't understand the power of words because you're making assumptions and you don't know how that person's going to take that, right? So a lot of it's just being non-judgmental and just using your common sense to kind of just be like, you know what, let me help you as much as I can and as much as you feel is appropriate. So just being mindful is a
And
big
being very
thing.
supportive. Yeah.
Supportive and just being like, this has such a big thing about being judgmental because we never know the full circumstance of the thing. And I feel like no one has the right to make assumptions of someone else's situation, right? Even if it's like right, the power of your words, right? Like because yeah, and it's just be chill and just
Yeah.
keep. Sometimes it's better just to keep your words to yourself. You don't know how
Yeah.
someone else is going to react to it.
Because you don't want to be the contributor to someone's negative childhood, right?
And then like going to like how all of these there are like so many factors that can affect somebody's mental health and somebody's mindset. Like we're talking today about the biological, social, and psychological aspects of mental health. There are a lot of factors. You can't just assume that this thing happened, so this must also happen. This must be the reason why.
Yeah. And another topic that we should cover is how we can promote, good mental health. So for example, there's some things we can change and some things that we can't change. So obviously we can't change our genes, we can't change grief, we can't change our socioeconomic status, but there's some things that we can change. For example, like our diet or lifestyle or our emotions, our perceptions of the world, and our coping skills. Okay, so these things that I just list, it's not easy to do, right? It's not easy to change these things. So that is why it's important to go for maybe see a psychiatrist or a therapist to help you change these things for the better. Yeah.
Yeah. Big part of the process of like, say, getting better or feeling better about yourself and being more confident about who you are and your identity is like finding people that can help you and being able to trust them.
Yes.
Definitely. And I think that kind of leads on to like the psychological causes as well. So the psychological aspect, I always thought the psychological is kind of like the symptoms of everything you're experiencing too, right? Like when you look at like psychological in a sense of it, this could be in your self-esteem, right? Like your attitudes and your beliefs, your coping skills to very traumatic events and stuff like that. I feel like your psychology can really reflect how you're living and your genes and everything and stuff like that too. I hope that makes sense.
And it's important to never feel bad about your mental illness. Like it's so hard.
Yeah,
it's so hard to like get better. Like it's a long process, and never let anyone put you down for it.
Yeah.
Thing, right? Like, you know how I think Nina was saying, just like when you look at someone's highlights on, on Instagram or social media or anything, it's such a result oriented. You're looking at someone's result, but they don't show you the journey they went through, right? We don't focus on the journey we're going through anymore, right? And that's why, like now, like I put myself through a phase where I'm like, I don't care about that numerical grade. I care about what I'm doing today. Like what, like not even just like study hacks or whatever, just like how much sleep I'm getting, how I'm feeling, how I'm coping with anxiety. Because you're not always going to be in that perfect state and that perfect mindset. You're not always going to be resilient. You're not always going to be surrounded by people like you love or people who are supportive. So like every step is not going to be the same, and you have to acknowledge that as well, right? Not every step is going to be perfect. Not every So I think that's a big thing as well. And right, and you can't be mad at doing something wrong.
Definitely.
Right? You want to be hard, you want to improve, but the more anxiety you put on it, the more you're gonna go away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I got so moody there.
I think one of the big things, even though if you want to change, a friend that really she knew that if she didn't change, it's going to be way harder for her in the later future. But the surroundings near her, like her school, her family, because you can't change family, right?
Yeah, you
And
can't change family.
it's not like friendship where you can slowly ease out of it. Like there's no way. But there for friendships, there are something that yes, you can change. That it's hard, yes, but
Sometimes it's worth it.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
worth. I think I mentioned this in the last one where, um, my mom has taught me where it's better to be alone than rather spend time or waste your energy and your like emotions on the people that hurt you and are toxic to you, that keep like belittling you. Like that's no.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, and all
And
that affects your psychology, all of it. Yeah, definitely.
and sometimes you like can't change your surroundings. For example, if your family really wants to go to this school and that school is honestly not the best for you, maybe it's like way too competitive and it's so toxic and you just can't do anything without someone judging you because it's like who knows, an elite school. And it's just because you can tell by when you go to a school. I don't because I used to do sports and I would go to each school. You can tell by either like a team or like once you like walk into the school and you like hear the surroundings around you, like you can tell if this school is, well, a community of that who supports you or do go against each other. And honestly, it's just it's just so hurtful sometimes. It just boggles my mind that sometimes someone could do or say something to another person and not think about how they would feel or how if someone did the same thing to you, which just
Thank you, Zoe.
Yeah, that was really well said.
Yes. I think this is the running thing that, right, all of social is obviously a very big part in mental health, right? It's right. So I think obviously, but I think we don't really pay attention to the people we're around sometimes, right? Like we're with friends and maybe like because I think one of the things I mentioned, right? Remember like roasting humor? There's a lot of that right now.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes we don't pay attention to. We know like our social aspect is very important to our mental health. Like it's a very big aspect too. Like we know the power of our words, but like we still don't pay attention to our peer group. We still don't. I feel like we don't give much emphasis, and we kind of just make it secondary, right? Even though it's a big part, right? So I think just attention to the people you're surrounded with, how you want to be seen, how you want to be talked to, right? It's you need to create boundaries and stuff like that too, like what you're comfortable, what you're not comfortable, right? To create an environment that's not only like that's not only transparent for yourself but others as well.
Yeah.
So right, and that comes with not being judgmental. That comes with being transparent.
Yeah, so, transparency is very important.
It is very important, right? In order to be like,
because we're all working together. We're all in this together.
Exactly.
I normally talk online and where my friends like we roast each other. Yes, it's like all humorous fun, but always at the end, we say like, "Hey, I didn't mean this seriously. I think you're an awesome person, and that is why I'm still your friend." And like we always reassure each other at the end, and like nothing is taken out seriously. So I would never do it to like a stranger or like a person I don't really know well.
Definitely.
But yeah, even though like even though it's like humorous, even though like if because I can't read your mind, but also I have to also take consideration into your feelings. So I think, yeah, being transparent is also really important. And especially in a team, because you're all working towards a single goal, right?
Yeah.
Because especially with when your own friends don't understand that, okay, well, that's really rude, right? Stop doing it, right? And then you don't want to be sometimes you don't want to be blunt and be like, hey, stop, like I don't like that, right? And everything gets awkward and you're scared that it'll make your friendship a little different or make it awkward and stuff like that. You deal with that as well. So it's like sometimes you can't have hard feelings for something, right? In terms of like, okay, I'm going to tell you this, but I don't expect it to be something that's like, I don't hate you, right? But like, I also want you to know that I'm not comfortable with this, and I'd be much more comfortable with hanging out with y'all if you stopped.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's very important to like set the boundaries. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Posh Mentality. Thank you for coming.
And remember, there are many factors of mental health, so be mindful of every person's situation and their circumstances and everything like that, and just be kind, don't be judgmental, and yeah, I will hope to see you next time.
Stigma Busters out.